Welcome, everyone. Coach Susan and I are here with you today, and we are excited because we've got kind of a little bit of a hot topic today. I don't know how hot it will be for our audience, but it's certainly hot in the biblical world. Most of you, I think, are in alignment with some of what we teach at Leslie Vernick and Co. But the question is, let me just wait till we get live on Instagram. I think we're live on Instagram, but I don't think anybody's here yet. So let me just see. There we go. Welcome. Today we are talking about, does respect and biblical submission mean a wife can never say no, right? Does biblical submission and respect, the Bible says respect your husband, submit to your husband, does it mean you never, as a wife, once you're married, you never get a no, that is locked, that your no is silenced because now you are a wife? Is that what the Bible means by respecting your husband and biblically submitting? Does it mean that you now do not ever get to say no? I can't imagine any of you think that way, but if you think that way, would you be brave enough to raise your hand and let us know? Because we would like to understand that. And most of you probably don't think that way. I just saw somebody from California. Welcome, in Canada. But what I'd like to ask you is, what is your definition of biblical submission? What is your definition of respect? Because I think these words are loaded words. Since the book by Emerson Eggerichs came out, Love and Respect, I think it's been a buzzword in a lot of Christian churches, a lot of Christian homes. You need to respect me. What does that mean to you? And it might mean something completely different to your husband, but what does that word respect mean? And are you having a hard time doing it? What does that word respect mean? And again, if you respect someone, does that mean you can never say no to them? What does that feel like to you when I say that?
Yeah, I'm really curious what everybody's going to come up with when I'm working with, couples. That's one of the first things I ask. And oftentimes there's a disagreement about the word respect. What does that mean? So for the man, it's often something akin to admiration, right? And for the woman, it's hard to go there, especially if he doesn't have a lot of admirable qualities at the time. So I'm curious what's coming up. I see several people here. And it's important for us to define these terms before we really get into what does it mean. And I think you're right that many people are aligned with us in the teaching, but maybe still feel confused because the church may be teaching something different.
Yeah, so someone on Instagram is saying love and respect was a wedding gift from several people 18 years ago. We kept arriving to the conclusion that we defined it differently. Man has a final say and wife can have an opinion, but only if he asks it. So is that true biblically? Is that really true that a wife can have an opinion, but ultimately the husband rules the roost? That ultimately he gets the final say, he gets to do what he wants, regardless of what you say, even if you say no. He gets to do what he wants because he's the head. Is that how God designed the marriage to work? What do you think? My husband told me he couldn't take all the disrespect anymore after he got drunk and punched a hole through our basement door. Wow. That's a scary thing. And be careful what you put on Facebook, just saying that, if your mother-in-law reads that, she may challenge you on something, or, if your pastor reads it, I don't know who's on your social media, but we want you to be safe. And that's one of the reasons that our big teaching next week on the 31st of March, if he doesn't hit you, is it still abuse, is going to be off of social media. We are going to be on a webinar jam space where you have to sign up to attend, so we can send you a link. We have to have your email to do that. And so if you're interested, if he doesn't hit you, is it still abuse? Is a woman allowed, a wife, a godly woman, a woman who wants to honor God, is she allowed to say no? And what happens to her when she does? Does she get kickback? Does she get pressured? Does she get manipulated? Does she get gaslit? Does she get coerced? Does she get forced? Does she get physically harmed? These are different levels that we're going to be talking about next week at the workshop. If he doesn't hit you, it still could be abusive, because it is my opinion that God gave you as partners to manage life together, not just him to make all the decisions and you just go along with them. That you're better together as a couple, and he needs your perspective and you need his together if you're going to have a good marriage. And so if a woman is silenced and she's not allowed to say no, how does that really help him learn and grow for him to submit? Because guess what? It's not just women and wives who are called to submit. And what does submit mean? We didn't define that yet. What does submit mean? But let me just say this. All believers are called to submit to one another in Ephesians 5:1. All believers are called to submit to God in James 4:7. And all believers are called to submit to authority in Hebrews 13:7. So it's not just wives or women who are called biblically to submit. So what is submission? What is submission?
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to just add, so our topic is, can you never say no? But can you also not say that's not okay? So since this example is out there, right, of husband getting drunk and punching through the basement door, is it not okay for you to say, that scares me, or I don't like that, or that's not okay for you to do that? So is that what he's saying is disrespectful? Is that you're not honoring him or submitting to him if you say, please don't do that. I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't control his actions. So if he does something like that, that's a wake-up call for you that he lacks self-control, which is one of the fruit of the Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Or he's got lots of control and he's using it to bully and intimidate and scare you into compliance, into your yes. But that's not submission. If someone's got a gun to my head, I'm going to do what they want, right? So that's coercion, that's compliance. That's not biblically submission. So what is biblical submission? Let's define it. If we're all to submit to authority, we're all to submit to one another, and we're all to submit to God. If you're to submit to one another, does that mean you never can say no to one another? Does that mean that you have to go along with what everybody wants you to do all of the time? Does that mean if your mother-in-law says, hey, I want to move in with you because I'm lonely and I don't want to live by myself anymore, does that mean you have to say yes because we're to submit to one another? Does that mean if my girlfriend says, hey, I need to borrow some money, I know that you have more money than I do, I'd like to borrow $10,000 because I need to put a down payment on a car. Can I borrow it or can I have it? Does that mean I can never say no? What does it mean to submit? Because it doesn't mean that you don't have a no. Mm-hmm. What does it mean? Supporting his decisions without questioning him, is that what submission means? I'm not sure biblically that means that at all.
It's mistaken.
It might mean that to him, yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is a hard one to define, and I'm so glad you're asking this question, because we may think we know what it means, but until we try to put some words around it, it gets a little bit cloudy, I think, in our society, in our culture, in the church culture. And so it's important to put some words around it.
What is biblical submission?
So one of the things that I try to remember about submission is that it's voluntary. If it's coerced in any way, or pressured or demanded, it's not submission. Submission is always voluntary.
Right. Right. So God doesn't demand that we bow our knee. He invites us to, and we decide, am I going to or am I not going to? Am I going to yield myself and submit myself to God and his authority or my life, or am I not? I get to decide that. Biblical submission is the motive and attitude of our hearts that reflects into our actions. Okay, so that we're wanting to cooperate, we're wanting to understand, we're wanting to partner with someone, but we might have some questions, or we might have some different ideas, or we might have some disagreements with that. Okay. Does that mean you can never say no? Like if your heart is to be a cooperative person, but your husband's asking you to do something that is not smart in your idea, in your mind? Just the thought of feeling that freedom of choice is so beautiful. Yes, it is. And God gives us a choice because he doesn't want us to be robots. He didn't create robots. God is the creator. He could have created a whole planet full of robots if he wanted everybody to do what he wanted with no choice, right? And the first two human beings he created in his divine image with a choice, and they chose not to submit to him, right? They chose not to submit to him. So what does biblical submission mean? Being faithful, loyal, respectful, doing good by him, okay? Any other ideas? Does your husband ever submit to you? When we're submitting to one another, the Bible doesn't say specifically husbands submit to your wives, but it does say right before that whole submission passage, submit to one another. So does your husband ever submit to you? Does he ever say, oh my gosh, that's a great idea? Like, I know that I've been married a long time. I've been married 50 years this last year. So my husband has submitted to me, and I have submitted to him, because we together make a better team than each of us apart. So he thinks very right brain, or he thinks very left brain. I mean, he's a computer analyst, he's a nuclear engineer. He thinks all that. I think kind of right brain. And so together we make a better whole brain than either one of us would think by ourselves. Mm-hmm. But if I don't have a voice, or I can't say, I don't like that, that doesn't make sense to me, I think you're missing something. And if he's not interested in listening, how does that make us a better partnership? How does that make you a better partnership, which is what God's intention is for marriage, for you to be a partnership, for you to be better together, not just him better, but you better together than alone. And I think sometimes our view of marriage, and I think the Christian view of marriage sometimes, is that he's better because you're the wife and you're doing everything and submitting and propping him up, but you're not better. You're both to be better.
Yes. I love that word mutuality that's in the chat on YouTube. I think that does speak well of submission. And even the research about married women and married men shows that men do better when they're married and women don't right now. And I think we need to change that. Because you're right, Leslie, both people should be doing better. When you're living in a mutual relationship, a mutual partnership, you're strengthening one another, and you're using each other's strengths to better your marriage or your relationship or the situation.
Then you both flourish.
And you both flourish, yes.
Then you both flourish. And that's what God wants for you. That's why he created marriage, for you to have an environment where you are seen, you are known, you are safe, so that you can flourish and that you can help your children, the littles that the two of you create, flourish in that environment, because that's how humans flourish, when they're seen and known and safe. They flourish. And when they're scared and have to say yes all the time with no choice and no voice, they can't flourish. They become little robots, scared little robots. That's not what God designed human beings to be. So Rhonda's saying, I think I see submission as commitment to my husband, to working things out with him respectfully and lovingly. I use my voice and we practice mutual submission and respect. That's beautiful. Yes, that's a beautiful definition. I would say that if your husband can buy into that, if he doesn't have to be the leader in terms of meaning I get my way all the time, which is not God's definition of leadership in any sort of way, then it can be a beautiful discipline. It's a beautiful discipline. Mm-hmm. So let me give you my definition of submission. Submission is yielding to the other person. Okay? It's mutual. So if I'm going to a church that really likes the contemporary music, and I'm not a big fan of the contemporary music. I wish we had the old hymns, and I'm not saying that that's true of me, but there are people who feel that way, that they wish they had the old hymns and the organ and all of that. I'm not going to push for my agenda if the main people in this church want the contemporary music. I'm just going to yield. I don't have to have my way all the time. You see, by nature, intrinsically, we're sort of selfish people. And so submission teaches us a beautiful discipline that I don't have to have my way in order to be happy, that I can yield my will over to someone else in this matter. I can still not like something, but I can live with it, right? I can live with it. And sometimes I learn, oh, I was wrong. This is really good. I really enjoy this. Or sometimes I learn, I really don't like this at all, but it's not against my moral values. And so I can forbear, which is a discipline that we're to learn scripturally. I can forbear with the differences in our family or the differences in our political positions on things, right? I can forbear and let you be you and I can be me. But when I can't be me and I have to be like you in order for us to get along, then I don't think that's submission. That's called in the Bible oppression.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's oppressing who I am to be like you. But I'm not to be like you. I'm to be like God. Right? And so submission is yielding my will so I don't have to have my way all the time. And I can learn that that is fine. I don't have to have my way all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's rooted in strength, not passivity, right?
Or fear.
Or fear. Yes. And it doesn't give up responsibility either.
Yeah. Yeah. Rhonda says he buys in and I feel blessed because of that. Of course, because that is how God designed a marriage. That you value his strengths and his abilities and yield when he knows more about something in an area that you don't know enough about. And it goes both ways though, right? That sometimes you know a whole lot more about something that he knows about and he yields to your perspective and can make a good decision because of your perspective shaping his perspective. Right? And so those are the benefits of marriage, that you're stronger together. That's how God designed marriage. Not that you're just the weaker vessel and you're there to prop him up and do what he wants and help him to do what he wants. That's not God's definition of marriage. Not in the Bible, but that's sort of culturally what it's boiled down to in a lot of Christian churches. And that's not how God sees marriage. He created Adam and Eve as mutual partners who had reciprocal responsibilities in relationship. They were partners in stewarding the earth and naming the animals. They were both given authority and power. One of the things that we didn't define is leadership. And so let me just define leadership really quickly for you. Because if the husband is to be the head, the leader, Jesus was really, really clear with his disciples because culture has always faced oppression, racism, slavery, putting people over others, however you want to call it. That's how culture has been. Patriarchal culture was rampant in biblical times, as was slavery. Does that mean it was God's will? No, that was the result of sin, men's power over other people. And so leadership, when Jesus is giving his disciples the baton, he's saying, I'm not going to be with you very much longer. So, hey guys, you're going to be the leader of my new church. Let me tell you how it's done. And first, he washed their dirty feet. He showed them. Leadership doesn't look like standing on the chair saying, I'm the man here. I'm the best. Look at me. It doesn't look like a celebrity. That's not what leadership looks like. It doesn't look like a bully. That's not what leadership looks like. Jesus says leadership looks like you serve. And when he washed their dirty feet, this is what he said afterwards. Guys, you know the rulers, the Gentiles of this generation, rule over other people. That's how they demonstrate their leadership. Not so with you. Not so with you. Do not misuse your power to rule over people. That's what Jesus says. Don't do it. So leadership that is a power over model, I have to have my way, you have to submit, I get to rule over you, I get the final say. That's not called biblical leadership or headship. So we've gotten it wrong, as culture gets it wrong often. So leadership is asking your opinion, inviting your voice, serving you, empowering you to be your best self. That's what a leader does. Doesn't oppress you or scare you or squash you and make you small. And you just have to submit because I'm the head. That's called a bully in the scripture, an oppressor, not a godly husband or pastor or man. What's your reaction to that? What's your reaction to that?
I think it brings a lot of clarity of what you're looking for in a healthy relationship.
And so if you need that clarity, if you're in a relationship, if you're in a marriage where you're being told you can't say no and the Bible supports that, could you please sign up for our workshop next week? It'll be on Tuesday at noon Eastern time, just like now, or 7:30 p.m. if you'd rather get in your car, take your phone, and go watch it privately. You can go do that. But I need to send you a link to the email so that you can get on it. And so it's going to be 7:30 p.m. or noon Eastern time. I will do each session live. It's not a recording. I will be there. My team will be on the chat. We want to serve you and help you in the most private way possible so that you can say what you need to say on the chat. You can change your name. We don't know who you are. You can put all you need to put in there, the questions that you have. And so after I'm done teaching you, I'm going to give you about a 10-page workbook that you can use later to continue to do your own work. And after that, we'll do an hour and a half of Q&A. So the workshop itself will take about 15 minutes. I'm trying to keep it under an hour. And then I'll stay for another hour and a half for question and answers for you so that you can ask your questions in a private, safe space, that we're not worried about somebody seeing you or seeing them on Facebook. Also, if you'd like to ask a question today, put it in the chat. Or if you're not comfortable with that, you can go to lesliebernick.com. What is it, Susan? Is it
/question/?
Okay, lesliebernick.com/question/ That will take you to a link. You can type your question in there off of social media, and my assistant will put it on my computer so that I can read it out loud and nobody knows who said it. So that if you're worried about putting something in the chat, we want to protect you as much as possible from any negative ramifications if someone happened to be on here with you or reads my Facebook page later when they're watching the replay. So we want to make sure you're safe in doing that. But if that's an issue for you at all, then come to the workshop. Come to the workshop. We will have a replay for those of you who can't come live, but understand this, you're going to miss a whole lot because of our desire to protect your privacy, we do not include the chat and we do not include the question and answer time in the replay. So you'll just get the information in the workbook, which is valuable to you for sure, and it's completely free. But if you want to have that interaction with me and one of my coaches afterwards, and you want to have the interaction with the chat, which the team, my team will be on the chat for most of it. And so being able to ask your questions on the chat as well is really valuable to you. And we're giving this all to you for free because we care about women who are in destructive marriages. And we really want to give you as many resources, biblical resources. There's a lot out there, a lot of chatter right now about narcissism and all of the stuff. There wasn't when I first started this work, but there is now. But some of it doesn't align with biblical values. And so it's really easy to just get confused or get angry or reactive or just stuck and I don't know what to do because there's so many people saying something and they're not all saying the same thing and I don't know what to do. And so if you're a Christian and you want some sound biblical advice about what to do if you're in this kind of situation, then come to the workshop because I'm going to teach you not only 4 signs of abuse that have nothing to do with hitting, but I'm also going to teach you 4 beliefs that you might have to break up with. One of them is not this one that submission means I can't say no. That's a belief you might have, and you might need to break up with that. I'm not going to be talking about that one in the workshop, but you might have to break up with some beliefs in order for you to grow and to become healthier, in order to be able to invite your husband to also become healthier. Did you ever notice that sometimes we have very powerful influence once we start to change? So maybe like you decide to eat healthy and you decide to exercise. Sometimes that motivates other people in your family to do that too, right? If you start to get healthier, no guarantees, but sometimes the unhealthy person in your life begins to see some honest, godly changes in your life. not the typical try harder and make him happy changes. The speak the truth in love changes that I'm talking about, that really honor them as a person, but don't comply with their foolishness. And how do you get strong enough to be able to do that is what we're going to be talking about a little bit in the workshop. So if that's you and you're in a marriage where you feel scared, confused, gaslit, devalued, deceived, stuck, and you don't know what the Bible says that you can do. I mean, you know you can get divorced, but you know, Bible says God hates divorce. That's what they say. Anyway, it doesn't say that, but that's what they've been told. So you get scared and stuck. You're not just upsetting your husband, you're upsetting God. You're ruining your family, all the lies that you've been told. And I want to unpack some of that because you can do it in a bad way and hurt your kids for sure. But how do you walk through this journey if this is you in a godly way? It doesn't mean just to keep your mouth shut and submit. You'll do that if you're a prisoner for sure. And if that's you, understand you might have to keep your mouth shut. But he doesn't want you to keep doing that for long. You need to develop a strategy to get out of there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, such an important workshop. So I hope that you register. If you're here today, you must have been interested in this topic. So if you don't feel comfortable and you know in your gut, but you say yes anyway, this workshop is for you. If you avoid bringing things up because you're afraid of his reaction, or you feel responsible for how he reacts, or you find yourself questioning yourself constantly, this workshop might be for you.
Yeah. Are there only a certain amount of seats for the webinar? It's unlimited. It's unlimited. I know some groups have like 1,000 seat maximum. We have more seats available than that. And we pay for that so that we can not have to cut you off. And we often have a large group. So we want you to come. We want you to be a part of this. This is completely free, but we want you to be educated in a godly way about what does the Bible say about this? And how can you tell if it's not physical? I mean, if he's punching you, you know you're in an abusive relationship. If he's raping you, you know you're in an abusive relationship. You know that, even if you can't face it. But what about some of the other stuff? What about the other stuff? How do you know? Maybe it's just a hard relationship. Every marriage is hard. My marriage has been hard. It's 50 years. It's been hard. It's got some hard years. Does that mean it's destructive? No, it's just hard, right? So what are the signs that this relationship is not just hard? It's destructive. It's abusive. I'm going to give you those markers that you will be able to say, oh my gosh, he's doing this, he's doing this, he's doing this, I'm doing this. This is destructive. Mm-hmm. And let me just say this. I'll say it in the workshop many times. You've heard me say it before. Your kiddos are watching this. Even if they're grown, they're still watching this. And your kids deserve and need one healthy parent. And when he's unhealthy, whether it's he's narcissistic or he's addicted or he's full of deception or whatever is going on with him, and you're trying to do the right thing in an unhealthy way, right? You're trying to honor God. You're trying to keep your kids together. You're trying to keep your family together, but you're doing it at the cost of losing yourself, that you're disappearing, that you're living afraid, that your body's breaking down. That's not helping them. So he's unhealthy in his way and you're unhealthy in your way. And it's damaging to the kids. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So someone said, your videos help me to cope with my destructive marriage. I have young children that I homeschool. It's very hard, but I can't leave at this time. God provides. You know, many of you may not choose to leave at all, but we want to give you the tools of what you need to do to stay and get healthy. Your children do deserve one healthy parent. Mm-hmm. And when you're unhealthy and you're calling that godly, oh, I'm just sacrificing myself, even if I have to die, that's God. When you're an unhealthy martyr in this marriage, your children are learning what is a woman's role here with unhealthy men. The Bible tells you in Ephesians, do not, right after the whole submission stuff, do not participate in the unfruitful deeds of darkness. Rather, expose them. Mm-hmm. Expose them. I can't do that. Yeah, you can't, because you'll be hurt if you do. But what's happening if you don't? You're getting hurt. You're getting hurt. Your kids are getting hurt. And I don't know what kind of darkness is going on at your house, but you do. But I've been in this work a long time, and I've seen some really, really awful things that are going on in church homes. I won't even call them Christian homes, church homes.
Yeah.
That should never be. And you're going along with it, thinking that you're making a godly sacrifice, a noble sacrifice, to enable him to continue to sin against you and your kids. Doesn't read well in my Bible that way.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to clarify this workshop and Leslie Vernick and co. in general, we're not pushing women towards divorce. That is not what we're doing. We are helping women be healthy, right? Learning how to be well, whether you choose to stay or you choose to go. That is our focus, on being well. So if you're saying, I can't leave at this time, that's okay. But we want to help you be well in the situation where you're in now.
Yeah, because healthy people make good decisions, right? So even if you're an unhealthy person, we've had women who have left a destructive marriage and then gotten into another unhealthy relationship. And then they've left that relationship because he's an abuser and he's a narcissist. And I can't believe I picked an alcoholic again. And then they got another relationship and they're still in an unhealthy relationship because they haven't done their own work. Mm-hmm. And doing your own work doesn't mean you're responsible for their unhealthiness, but you are responsible for yours. And sometimes we mislabel our unhealthiness as godly because we're passive, we're compliant, we're submissive, we're the weaker vessel. And we never mature. We never grow into our God-given capacity, not because we can't, but because we're not allowed to, and we're afraid to rock the boat. Mm-hmm. That's not a healthy person, but we're calling it godly.
Mm-hmm. But oftentimes what happens in these situations is resentment starts to build, bitterness takes root, anxiety increases, identity gets smaller and smaller until it's vanished, right? As your voice gets quieter and quieter, and you're living in confusion. That's not flourishing.
Mm-hmm. So we would like to answer some of your questions. Jessica, I think you're helping us. I see some questions in the chat that I don't see in the question tracker. So if you can get our questions to us, we would appreciate that. There's a question about, I think from Lisa, who is kind of initiating, or her husband initiated a divorce, I think I'm seeing this, and had you signed papers, avoided you for 5 months during blended family issues, a loyalty bind from stepdaughter, divorce wasn't finalized, now he wants reconciliation and intimacy. I need guidance. So what do you want? I think that would be my first question. What do you want? He wants reconciliation. What do you want? And what does reconciliation look like? Right? Because it doesn't look like going back to the bedroom. That's not what it looks like right now. What does reconciliation look like? Put it in the chat for those of you who would like to kind of chime in on this. What does the beginning of, do we build this back? What do we build back? What does it start with? What does it start with? It starts with safety. Okay, it starts with safety. So Lisa, do you feel safe with him? And what I mean by that is not just I can be in the same room, but can I say no? Can I say no? Can I trust? Yes. So lots of trust, truth, repentance, those are some of the first steps, but you can't even know that if you don't feel safe with him. So what would it take for him to do differently for you to feel safe? That would be your first question. Not to ask him, but to ask yourself. Right? So maybe I need him to show me our bank accounts to see if he has continued to spend money recklessly. Or maybe I need him to show me his phone so that I can see if he's still texting with that woman, or if he's erased all the evidence of that. Or maybe I need him to put half of our money in my account in case he wigs out again and goes for a divorce, that I have some safety net for myself financially that isn't going to leave me with nothing. So you get to decide what he needs to do to help you to feel safe, to begin a reconciliation process. And then what?
Yeah, repentance is important. Rebuilding trust, right? Developing a new pattern. But that safety is key. None of that can happen if there's not safety.
So let's take this topic. Am I free to say no? If I am not free to say no, then you're not safe, right? Because you can't express your ideas. You can't express your dissent. You can't express your disagreement. And therefore, you're not safe to have a intimate relationship with someone who you can't be you, right? If I can't say, no, I don't like that. No, I don't want that. No, that's not going to work for me. Whether it's about, I don't want to take out a loan, I get nervous when we're in a lot of debt, or I don't want to move because the kids are secure in their school. And, we have to really think about this before you take another job in another state. They're juniors in high school, and I don't want to disrupt. If you're not allowed to have those discussions with a husband and he just gets to pull you wherever he wants to pull you or take whatever he wants to take, if you're not allowed to say no in bed because I'm tired or I don't feel good, or I have a yeast infection and it doesn't feel good to have intercourse right now. If you're not allowed to say no, you're not safe because you're just an object to serve his needs. You're not a person. A person, when your baby begins to become a person, what's the first word out of their mouth besides mama? No. They become a person. They have a no. If you don't have a no in your marriage, you're not functioning as a person. You're functioning as a role. So Sally said, I asked, how would you like to be the only one who had to play by the rules, honesty, mutuality, etc.? Didn't get much acknowledgement, just bounces off. Okay, and you said, which is information? It is information. So when you ask these questions, and you can ask them with respect, going back to that topic, when you can treat someone honorably, God calls us to treat one another honorably, right? Because we are image bearers. Sometimes we get so frustrated with someone and so aggravated with them, we treat them dishonorably as they've treated us. But that is not God's way. And so if you can ask some of these questions, so you want to reconcile with me, am I open to that or am I not open to that? If I'm open to that, then okay, I might be open to that, but what do you see is the biggest challenge to me being able to trust you again? What do you see is the biggest challenge for me to feel safe with you? Oh, you just need to get over it. You just need to forgive. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? It gives you a lot of information right there. He doesn't need to do anything. You need to do it all. Is that what you want to get back into?
Yeah. Yeah, and being safe, it means you can say no without being treated badly, stonewall, or his anger showing up. Yeah, what happens when you try to say no? Is it listened to? Is it honored?
Mm-hmm. Is it fair to say, I don't want you to have emotional conversations in your co-parenting dynamic with your ex? Or is that controlling?
Well, I think expressing that is not controlling, but what do you do if he says, no, I need to have conversations with my ex about co-parenting? Can you accept that? Emotional conversations. Yeah, I wonder what that means. Emotional conversation. So it sounds like it's not just co-parenting together. sounds like there's more than that.
Yeah, I think it's really important for you to express your concern, your curiosity. Like, why is that important for you? Why is that important for her that you're listening to all of her dating issues or whatever it is, the emotional part? And, he might be getting something out of that that meets a need for him. And I'm not saying that that's good. I'm just saying that that might help bring more self awareness to him. But I think Susan is right. You can say, I don't think it's wise. I don't like it. But I don't think it's up to you to control his conversations. Mm-hmm. So if he doesn't see you as a partner, when I say to my husband, I don't think that's a good idea and I don't think that's wise, and he goes and does it anyway, I notice that. Now, sometimes he's right and I'm wrong. So it's okay. It's not like I'm always the wiser one in the family. But notice that, like, okay, I put my cards down and he's disagreed and he's gone and done it. And sometimes, like, I got invited to speak in Iraq during the Iraq War. And my husband said, I don't want you to go. I don't want you to go. And I said, but I really want to go. And I went. So I think that those are times in a marriage where you make a decision and they express, he didn't say you can't go. He just said, I'm scared for you. And I said, everything is pretty safe in this area and I'm, going in a safe way. And, I kind of feel God's calling me to go. So I went and I was safe and it was fine. But I think there's times when you do have disagreements and you have to agree to disagree if you can say no. But if you can't say no, I wouldn't want my husband to control. You can travel twice a year and that's it. You can go here, but not there. That's not his domain of my ministry life or my life, right? But I think that's where we have some good arguments and good discussions and good conversations, but you can't control another person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she says there's oversharing and venting about their feelings to one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I would just encourage you to think about what is your worry? What is your concern in that? It sounds like there may be some anxiety for you about where that's going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so here's another example of not being able to say no, saying no to wearing revealing clothing that I don't feel comfortable in. And he pouts and gives a silent treatment. Yeah, I had a client who had that problem too. Her husband wanted to wear clothes that she just felt really like she felt slutty in them. Like I would have to wear these little cuts, and he wanted me to get breast implants, and I had to wear tight jeans, and and he enjoyed having other men look at her as if this is my wife. Don't you want her? It was creepy. It was really creepy for her, and she had to put her foot down and say, you know what? I am not wanting to be treated like an object on your arm. I'm not willing to do that. And he did pout for a while, and she stuck up for herself, and he learned to respect her feelings. So you're not a doll. You're not an object. You're not a little toy. He dresses up and says, look what I have, right? That's not, he might do it with a car if he wants. Like if he's got a big old red Mercedes or Maserati car and he wants to drive around and say, look at me, look what I got. He can do that with a car. But when he does it with you, he's treating you as an object.
Yeah.
And you get to say, I'm not willing to do that.
And that's disrespectful.
Yeah. Very disrespectful to you. If he enjoys you dressing a little sexy in the bedroom and you're okay with that, that's different. But for you to go out in public in a way that you don't feel comfortable just to be oogled by other men so he can feel like I got the hottest woman in town, I mean, that's just disrespectful to you.
So I'm not seeing a lot of questions coming in, but I do see this one, Leslie. If my husband has become my enemy, how should I pray for him?
I'm writing a blog right now for this week on a woman who says she hates her husband and how does she deal with that. So read it again. My husband has
become my enemy. How should I pray for him?
Well, we have some really good examples of prayers like that from the Psalms. right? And David was very upset about some of his enemies, and he prayed for their destruction. He prayed for their to stop their ways. And so I think the Lord expects us to pray when enemies are hurting us. And depending on where we're at in the process, we might pray that they just die. Lord, take them home. They're harming me. They're harming our children. He's harming our children. And so I think those are called, the lament psalms. We're just lamenting. Life is hard. People are hard. There are evil, wicked people in our life. Help me, protect me, keep me safe. All of those things. But I think that ultimately, when you're in a better place and you can say, Lord, he is yours to deal with. Like I can't muster up a good feeling toward him. I can't love your enemy means I pray that you will do whatever it takes to wake him up. Right? And that's the most loving thing you could pray. So when Jesus says, love your enemy, he doesn't mean invite them for dinner. He doesn't mean make yourself vulnerable to an enemy. Precisely, you can't, because they are an enemy. They've harmed you. But you can pray that God will do whatever it takes to wake them up to their destructive ways so that they can repent, or at least they have an opportunity to repent, which would be in their best interest. So praying that they go to jail, praying that they, get caught, all of the stuff, I think we can pray for, because that might wake them up.
Yeah, and I'm concerned for this woman, because living with an enemy, and I don't know if you are living with him, but you say, my husband, it's hard on the body to live with someone you don't trust and feel safe with, somebody who you call your enemy, to be in close relationship with them, to share a life with them, is very hard on the body.
And so how's it impacting you? Right? Because if we think about marriage, is created. Why does God say, save yourself for marriage? Don't have sexual relationships outside of marriage. Why does he say that? I think one of the reasons that God says it is that marriage is created to be the safest relationship that you could have. In Proverbs, it says, in Proverbs 31, it says, he trusts her to do him good, not harm, all the days of his life, her life, both. So that marriage was created by God to be for you, for your good, for your safety, for your flourishing, both of you, not just for a man's flourishing, but for your flourishing. When it says in Proverbs, it'd be better for you to live in the corner of a rooftop than for you to live with an angry and contentious woman. And Proverbs was written for a man. It was written to a man. So he's talking about women, but I would say same thing, an angry or contentious man. The Bible is very acknowledging of the effect of angry, deceptive, abusive people on your body. And Susan's saying it wisely, that God says it'd be better for you to live alone than live with that kind of person. The corner of a rooftop all by yourself than to live with that kind of person. So when we think about God's design for marriage isn't one of a slave-master relationship. It's one of two people who feel naked and unashamed, that they can be vulnerable with one another. They can be honest with one another. They can be without clothes, and they're not being made fun of. They're being accepted, and they're safe. And they can sleep in the same bed without having to keep one eye open that they're going to be attacked or harmed. They can share a bank account without worrying about that. They can share children together and raise them together. And so this marriage relationship is to be protected with safety all around it. And when you're not safe inside to be yourself, to say no, to have a personhood of your own, that you're just a slave, you're a role, you're a wife, you're a maid, you're a sex object, you're a mom, but you're not a person. You're not allowed to have a voice or a choice or express your opinion or say no. That is not a godly marriage at all.
Yeah, and I'm wondering about the behaviors that has made this man an enemy, right? That is my concern. And are you calling it out? Are you clear on what it is? So I hope you've registered for the workshop so you can get clarity, because it's not just obvious physical violence that creates bodily harm. It's a lot more than that.
Yeah, I mean, the immune system starts to break down. Your cortisol levels are through the roof, which causes heart issues, causes all kinds of breakdown of your organs. We work with women who are in their 60s and they say, I can't work now. I can't leave now. My body is shot. Please don't let that happen to you. Please don't let that happen to you. That is not God's design for you. And so, first and foremost, you're to steward your life. You have one life. And you might be a married woman, but you're still a daughter of God. You're called by God to steward you. And if your husband isn't stewarding you well, just like if you're not stewarding your children well, that's not a good thing, right? Your children need you to steward them well. And if your husband isn't nourishing you and you aren't nourishing him, then you're languishing in an unsafe, perhaps toxic environment. And you need some protection. You need some boundaries. You need to do something for yourself to be safe.
So I'm seeing another question in the chat. I've been married 5 times to narcissistic men. They were mostly covert. How do I overcome the shame of this?
Yeah, I think that you're paying a lot of stupid tax, right? Which I call when I didn't learn the lesson the first time, I call it stupid tax, right? So this is what we're talking about, ladies, is that there's an element in you that is not discerning these men, right? And so we would encourage you to kind of give yourself a hug and some compassion that you didn't know better, but now you are going to learn how to know better, right? Because 5 times is too many times to do the same mistake, right? And so you do feel a lot of shame of that. And I think that, we are going to feel some healthy guilt and shame over mistakes that we have repeated. I don't know that that's ever going to go away. I think there's things that I have done that, I wish I would have learned the second time, but I didn't, but I did learn the third time. There's a saying, there's a hole in the sidewalk. If you've ever read the poem, look it up on the internet. There's a hole on the sidewalk. I don't know if you can look it up, Susan. It's really cute, but I keep falling in the same hole. I keep falling in the same hole in the sidewalk. Mm-hmm. And what's the thing that you need to do differently? Like I walk down the sidewalk and I fall in the hole. It's not my fault. I don't know how I got here. And then I walk down the sidewalk and I fall in the hole. And, how do I learn to see the hole in the sidewalk? Mm-hmm. So I don't keep falling in the same hole. So your problem is not untypical, because obviously this poem would not have been written. I think the woman who wrote it fell in the same hole 5 times too, like you are. And so now the end of the poem is, I take a different street. Right. I've learned I can't go down that street. I can't walk that way anymore because I keep falling in the same hole. And so part of your work now is to understand you. What's going on? What is it that you are doing or not doing that invites these kind of people into your life? And when you start to get that niggle and sense in your intuition that same song, different verse, what's keeping you from ending those relationships before you marry this person? So I would just do some history, maybe with a trusted coach or a trusted friend, and look at the patterns that you've had. Mm-hmm. Like, we only dated for 3 months. We only dated for 2 months. I was really love bombed. He buys me all these things, and I get swept up in charm. That's oftentimes the issue. Mm-hmm. And I don't look for character. I get swept up in the charm, and I don't see the bad character behind that. Mm-hmm. And maybe another thing is you've never learned to say no. So you've never really poked the bear while you were dating, because he's so nice and I'm so love bombed and it's just so wonderful and this is time, it's it, and all of the things that we tell ourselves. I don't know, Susan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think testing relationships is very important before you make those commitments. So having a no, having freedom to be yourself. We know from research that narcissists often groom the people that they want to attach to, right? And so some of this may not be your fault, but starting to recognize the patterns, so that the 6th time, right, or even relationships, why are selfish people drawn to you. Like Leslie's saying, there may be some of your own patterns. I don't know that you're going to fully overcome the shame, but you can stop focusing on the shame and start focusing on being healthy and recognizing character in people, working on your intuition and your discernment so that you can start to choose people who help you flourish, not use you for their flourishing.
I love that. Yeah. And someone put in the chat the poem that I'm quoting, where you keep falling in the same hole, is called Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters. I actually used it in my book, Lord, I Just Want to Be Happy. And it's a very clever poem about falling into the same pit over and over again, and what do you need to do differently. And so the onus now is on you to do the work that you need to do, as Susan said, to not beat yourself up, but to say, wow, I need to start having better boundaries, or I'd be able to sniff out the charm factor over the character factor. I need to start saying no earlier in my relationships to see how they handle that. And I need to work on myself so that I'm not so easily fooled, or so easily charmed, or so easily deceived, or so easily talked into getting married sooner than I was ready to get married. Whatever it was, as you look at the patterns, look at your own patterns in the 5 relationships. I'm sure you'll find some similar themes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I see in the chat someone saying it's important to know the different types of narcissism. More so than that, I think it's more important to know what healthy looks like. Because there's a lot of versions of unhealthy out there. And I think if you know what healthy looks like, and you're modeling healthy, and you're rooted in healthiness yourself, then any other unhealthiness, you're not going to be drawn to that. You're going to start noticing it and say, I don't want that in my life. It costs me too much. It doesn't help me flourish.
Yeah. Yeah. Pam says, I got swept up in the charm too. Holly, I don't think you're alone in this. I think that there are other women who have had the same experience.
For sure.
And this is a moment for you, because you're here. You're hearing something different. You're hearing something different. And now it's time to do something different. So again, look at your patterns of how you get swept off your feet so easily by their charm, or how you get talked into something so easily without your no, or whatever it is that happened. As you look at your patterns and say, what do I need to do to get healthy? And I agree with Susan. We can spend a lot of time looking at what's wrong. But when people are looking for counterfeit money, the best way to spot counterfeit money is when you know what real money looks like. Mm. So what bankers do is they study real $100 bills, or doctors. What they study is healthy cadavers. They look at healthy blood vessels. They look at healthy hearts. They look at healthy brains. They look at healthy people, and then they can spot, this heart doesn't sound right, because I've listened to 100 healthy hearts, and when I'm listening to this heart, I detect a murmur, right? Or I've looked at dozens of miles of healthy skin. Your skin is, something's wrong with it. You've got some red spots I'm uncomfortable with. We need to get this biopsy, right? So study healthy. Once you know what healthy looks like, it's much quicker to spot unhealthy than for you to try to study unhealthy. Well, this melanoma looks this way, but this melanoma doesn't look this way, and this melanoma, and you could get lost in the weeds trying to think about all the different unhealthy elements of narcissism. Stick with the healthy. Susan's right, and I think you'll go a lot farther. Yeah. All right. Well, I would like you to take a moment, and what's your takeaway from today? What is it that you're seeing your work is right now? Right? So we talked about submission. We talked about, does submission mean you don't get a no? We've talked about respect and learning to respect someone, even if they're not deserving of it, not because they deserve you to admire them. They don't, but they are created in God's image. And so how you treat someone is on you. And that doesn't mean you enable their sin. It means that you can pray for them and you can have boundaries. But what's your takeaway from today? What's your takeaway from today? Yeah, someone recommended the Power and Control Wheel is also a great resource to look at. Mm-hmm.
I really love the communication that's happening towards one another in the chat.
Mhm.
It's beautiful when that happens. This is something you will get from the workshop if you attend live and you stay for the Q&A period. It's beautiful to have this running chat of women supporting women.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm so glad you pointed that out. It's really great. Mhm. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to be here again at noon Eastern time, and I'll be with Leanne, and we're going to be talking about why do you feel afraid when nothing big is happening?
Mhm.
Like, why are you feeling afraid of your husband when nothing big is happening? He's not yelling, he's not running around with a knife or a loaded gun, and yet you're still feeling afraid around him. What's going on with you, and what's going on in the vibes of the relationship? So come back tomorrow at noon Eastern time and we will talk about that because we're leading up to our workshop for next Tuesday, which we are going to have all hands on deck to talk about it in a private space. If he doesn't hit you, is it still abuse? How would you know? I'm going to give you 4 specific things that will tell you if you're in an abusive relationship, and none of them involve hitting. All right. And it's not even talking. It has nothing to do with emotional abuse. If you're being emotionally abused, you know you're in an abusive relationship, right? But we're talking about other kind of more subtle ways that you will know that your relationship is abusive, even if he never hits you, even if he never even curses at you. Will you know the relationship is abusive? I'm going to give you 4 signs that will help you see. And then I'm going to give you some beliefs that you might have to break up with in order for you to get strong enough to get healthy and not continue to live like that. All right. Thanks, Susan, for being here. And anything else you want to say in closing?
No, I hope the ladies join. This may be your best next step. If this topic has been resonating and you're feeling confused about what's been going on in your relationship, we long for you to get some clarity.
Yeah. And I also see takeaways is the importance of looking at healthy. Yeah. Really look at healthy. That will really help you. All right.
Okay.
Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.